Hey people, so just a few things to remember about equations, which is what we're starting with today, and we're just basically revising grade 8 equations. So remember the intention is to try and isolate the variable, firstly on the one side, and to isolate that variable, we make use of inverse operations, okay? So you always undo what's being done to x, and so what you do on the one side, you do on the other side. Okay, do the same to both sides of the equation. Keep writing the equal signs underneath each other, as you're going to see that I'm doing every time, and you keep applying the inverse operation until x is 1x, all on its own, in other words. So first things here, first example, x plus 3 is equal to 7. So what's being done to x? You should ask yourself, they're adding 3. So we shall do inverse operation, which is minus 3. And my advice to you is use a differently colored pen to show your inverse operation. So you can see that you're doing it to both sides and you're following the correct procedure. So this plus 3 minus 3 becomes 0. But we're keeping it equal by also subtracting the 3 on the other side. And then it's 1x remaining on the left hand side, which is exactly what we want. And on the right hand side, if we simplify, then 7 minus 3 is 4. Then example 2, they're subtracting 3 from x. So we, as inverse operation, should add 3. And what we do on the one side of the equal sign, we should do to the other side, of course. So that becomes 0, and then 1x remains on the left-hand side, and 7 plus 3 this time on the right-hand side is 10. Next example, 3. What's being done to x? You ask yourself. 2x means 2 times x, so they're multiplying by 2. So to get rid of the multiplication of 2, we divide by 2. And what we do on the one side, we shall do to the other side of the equal sign. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1, and we have 1x, which is exactly what we want. That means x is isolated, and x is equal to 12 divided by 2, which is 6. In the fourth example, we will times, because they are dividing by 2. So inverse operation of dividing by 2 would be multiplied by 2. So this is what it would look like. And then 12 times 2 gives you 24. So in other words, 1x is equal to 24. And then lastly, in example 5 here, we have an x on each side of the equal sign. So to isolate it, we first remove the x from the right hand side. This is my step. I always do first. So I subtract 4x. Remember, it's positive 4x if it's just 4x. So to remove it, we say minus 4x. And what we do on the right-hand side, we now have to apply to the left-hand side as well. But I only do it to the like term, which is the x on the other side. So doing that, in doing that, I have 4x minus 4x is 0. So there's just 7 remaining on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, if I simplify, 3x minus 4x is negative 1x. And negative 5 remains negative 5 for now. Now it looks like the kind of equations we've been doing up to this point. So the first thing we now carry on with is add 5 to remove the negative 5 that's being subtracted from x, negative x that is. So we also add 5 to the right hand side. On the left hand side, negative 5 plus 5 is 0 if we simplify there. And then negative x is equal to 7 plus 5, which is 12. And now it's negative x and not just x. So what will our inverse operation be? Basically, they're saying negative 1 times x. And to undo that, we have to divide, since they're saying negative 1 times. So we divide by negative 1. And what we do on that side, we do to the right-hand side. And that makes it negative 1 divided by negative 1 is 1x. And that's equal to 12 divided by negative 1, which makes it negative 12. The next thing that we revise from grade 8 equations would be when there are brackets inserted into the equation, which we first have to remove by multiplication. So first thing here, we're going to say 2 times 3 and 2 times negative 1x. So on the left hand side, it remains 3x minus 4. On the right hand side though, 2 times 3 is 6 and 2 times negative 1x is negative 2x. x. And now it looks like the equation we just did in example 5 on the previous page, and we have to therefore remove the x term from the right hand side. This time around it's negative 2x. So how do we remove negative 2x? We add 2x. And then what we do on the right hand side, we do to the left hand side, so plus 2x, but only to the like term, the x term on the left hand side, that is. And so negative 2x plus 2x is 0. Let's simplify our left hand side. 3x plus 2x is 5x's, and then bring down the negative 4 is equal to 6 is the only thing that remains on the right hand side. Then our next inverse operation would be to get rid of the minus 4 on the left hand side. So I plus 4 to get rid of it, and then I do the same thing on the right hand side just to keep it equal. So therefore negative 4 plus 4 is 0, and only 5x remains on the left hand side. So 6 plus 4 gives you 10. Last inverse operation, since it's 5 times x, we divide by 5 on each side, and then 5 divided by 5 gives you 1x equal to, and 10 divided by 5 gives you 2. On to the next example, which is kind of linking to the work we've done prior to the equations, which is the FOIL brackets. So we see here, write out the brackets and use the brackets twice, that is. So let's do that here. It becomes x minus 3 multiplied by x minus 3, in other words. Subtract 4 equals, and on the right hand side it is x squared, and then we can distribute so long over here, so plus 3x minus 3. And now if we FOIL on the left hand side, the x times x gives you x squared, then the x times negative 3 gives you negative 3x, inner terms negative 3x, and last terms negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Subtract 4 equal to x squared plus 3x minus 3. Now we simplify on the left hand side, we tidy up. We have like terms here, the x's, and we have like terms here. And x squared remains x squared. Negative 3x minus 3 more x is negative 6x. And then 9 minus 4 is positive 5. That is all equal to the trinomial x squared plus 3x minus 3. And now we just remove the x squared first, but see that it's x squared and x squared on each side, x squared and x squared. So if I'm going to say minus x squared from this side, then I have to do it that side, and then it basically becomes nothing on each side, because x squared minus x squared for both sides is 0. And all that remains is the negative 6x plus 5 and the 3x minus 3 on each side. So I'm going to remove the x from the right hand side, minus 3x, and do it to the left hand side as well. And I'm in the same step now going to remove my negative 5, or sorry, my plus 5 on the left hand side by subtracting 5, and what I do to the left I do to the right. Okay, so if you remove the x from the right hand side, then you should remove the constant term from the left hand side, just to recap that for you guys. Now we simplify. Negative 6x minus 3 more x is negative 9x. That becomes 0. So all that remains on the left hand side is negative 9x. And then on the right hand side, 3x minus 3x becomes 0, and negative 3 minus 5, if I simplify that, gives me negative 8. And yes, you may have a fraction as an answer, of course, but and so our last step is to divide by the coefficient of x, which is negative 9, and that gives you the answer of a fraction. I'm just going to write it next to you. I didn't leave enough space everywhere. And so negative 9 divided by negative 9 is 1. So it's x is equal to negative divided by negative is 1. And then it's just 8/9 as an answer. Okay, guys. So down below here, I've given you some work to practice this work. Just a revision, basically. You will find all the... there's an extra resource if you'd like to practice some more. But then there are some basic equations for you to practice.